That way? Let's play that way.
If we could get started, I'd appreciate it. Okay, it is 7 o'clock, so I will call to order the Tuesday Committee of the Whole meeting on October 23rd. The first item on the agenda is roll call.
Rusato?
Here.
Atack?
Here.
Starr? Here. Shanson?
Here.
Galvadi?
Here.
Wolf?
Here.
Brown?
Here.
O'Brien?
Here.
Callahan? Meitzler?
Here.
Malay?
Here.
Cooper?
Here.
Cerrone?
Here.
And McFadden?
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum. Let me again remind everyone to use a microphone within 6 or 8 inches from you when you speak so we can get it on the BATV and also on the recording so the recording secretary can make sure she catches everything when she writes up the minutes. Next item is item 2, which is approval of the minutes for October 2nd and October 9th, 2018. Anybody have any comments or questions on those minutes? Hearing none, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Chanzik, second by Metzler. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3, items removed, added, or changed. Laura, I know of none. Do we have any?
No.
Okay. And just for notation, we do have an executive session at the very end, but there'll be nothing coming out of that for public information. Item 4 is matters from the public for items that are not on the agenda. So if anybody in the public has something for us that's not on the agenda, now's the time to come on up and please use the microphone so we can all hear you and give us your name and we're happy to hear what you've got to say.
Good evening. My name is Dan Starr, and this is my wife, Janet Starr. We are Batavia residents, and we also own a business, Petland, off of Randall Road in Batavia. Petland as a franchise has been in business for just over 50 years. Last year was actually the 50th anniversary of Petland. The mission of Petland has always been to match the right pet with the right customer and meet both of their needs. As pet owners and pet lovers ourselves, we've always believed in the power and the benefit of the human-animal bond and what value animals can bring to the family. We have owned the store since November of 2007, and I believe it was owned previously by the former owner who opened it in 2003. So for 15 years, the store has been part of the community. Since we've owned the store, we've always taken extra steps to make sure that the breeders that we use are quality breeders. They meet or exceed our standards that we've set. The breeders that we use, the dogs have continuous indoor-outdoor access. The breeders have play yards. Oftentimes we'll have play equipment. We have videos of dogs running up play equipment and even sliding down slides to make sure that they can be dogs. They can have fun and run around. We want to make sure that the puppies they produce are healthy, high-quality puppies, as well as that they care for the adult dogs in their care for the lifetime they're with them. We visit our breeders on a regular basis. My wife continuously visits the breeders throughout the year. In addition, Petland corporate and franchisees go on additional breeder trips, some of them planned, some of them independently. Again, we want to assure that the breeders are not just meeting USDA standards, but they're meeting the Petland standards as well. As a courtesy to customers, we actually provide recent USDA inspection reports so they can see that there were no violations of any kind. I'm sure that some of you have seen horrific pictures of puppy mills. We are 100% opposed to puppy mills. As more light has been shown on the breeder world, the standards of care and the design of kennels have improved immensely, especially over the last 6 to 8 years. Our breeders understand that healthy, happy puppies or healthy, happy dogs result in healthy, happy puppies. The state of Illinois requires that puppies go home with a 21-day viral warranty and a 1-year congenital and hereditary warranty. At our stores, we have a 30-day viral warranty and a 3-year hereditary and congenital warranty. We stand behind our puppies, and we want to make sure our customers don't have issues with their puppy when it goes home. Unfortunately, we do deal in live animals, and all live animals can get sick. But in order to help prevent that, we have the warranty. We also have a partner network of 14 vet clinics throughout the Chicagoland area to service all of our customers' needs. We are also members of the Illinois Pet Lovers Association. Last year, we sponsored state legislation called the Safe Pets Bill to enhance and increase the standards in pet stores, sourcing standards, and mandatory microchipping if a pet, a dog or a cat is sold out of our store. My wife has previously met with Laura to share information about us, about our stores. We just wanted to come here tonight, take a few minutes to introduce ourselves, provide you some basic information, and answer any questions you may have about our store. In addition, if you ever have questions about our business or business model or want to see our store, you're always welcome to visit. We're open to taking a tour and provide you any additional information. Earlier this year, the store was actually remodeled, so it's really a nice change and it looks quite beautiful. That's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? I just want to make a comment that I personally have never heard anything negative about your store, and I can tell you that my family has frequented your store quite often in the past. In fact, the dog that we have right now, I think we probably bought right after you took ownership of it, because she's a little over 10 years old.
Okay, that's about right.
It's a blue heeler, and
Okay.
probably the best dog I've ever owned. So
That's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that.
Susan?
My son, without any previous warning, came home one day with it wasn't an iguana, but it was some similar creature.
Bearded dragon, probably.
That was what it was. It was a bearded dragon. And you guys were really nice when 3 weeks later we had to rehome it, and you found a home for it right away for us.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that. But those 3 weeks we had it, I bought a lot of crickets there.
Okay. You go through a lot of crickets. The last thing we want is somebody to keep an animal that they're not ready for or can't have. And Petland does have a policy. It's called Pets for a Lifetime. So if any time you buy an animal from Petland and you find your situation changes, you can't take care of it anymore, we will always take it back and rehome it for you, the best we can.
Well, appreciate Dan.
I was going to say, Facebook is a nasty, nasty, disgusting place, and I respect you for coming here to defend yourself. I understand that you were attacked recently by some people. I have frequented your store. I am the happy father of a cat, and I've never seen a problem at your location. So again, I commend you for coming here to defend yourself.
I appreciate it. We try really hard. We want to present a nice store for the people of Batavia, our family. We brought our 3 children here tonight just so they could see a little bit more about how government works, and they obviously love the store and play with the puppies, and they've actually been on some breeder trips with my wife as well. So they've seen the whole thing.
Well, I appreciate you coming down and telling us about your business, and certainly wish you many years of good fortune in Batavia.
Thank you. We'll leave some material for you for future reference.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, started.
You can just set it right. We'll pass it around.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay, we're going to move on then to item 5, which is the consent agenda. We have one item that is Resolution 18-117-R. That's approving the preliminary and final plat of subdivision for the MIF Batavia subdivision located at 1100 North Redant Road. Anybody have any comments or questions on that item? Hearing none, can we get a motion to recommend to City Council?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Stark, second by Ewer. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that'll go on to City Council under consent agenda. Item 6, wastewater treatment plant construction project monthly update. Alderman O'Brien.
Well, we have Jerry Ruth from Trotter here, and just a quick intro to Jerry is, I guess the next billing is for $1,727,434. We are 87, as the memo said, 87% completed, and the substantial completion is at the end of this month. So there's a lot of bit of work that has to get done prior to substantial completion if we're going to be there on time. So I'll let Jerry take it from there. And it does, the building looks great. Things are moving along fine, just a little behind. I'm assuming it's a little behind.
It is a little behind, that's correct. And we'll get to, it's a juicy one, we'll get to that when we get to the schedule portion. But yes, it is a little behind. We are 6 days away from substantial completion per contract. So the contractor is pushing and working longer hours, working weekends, trying to get the job done. Since the last time we spoke, work inside the large building at the north end of the site is ongoing, including MEPs inside, sprinkler system inside. Exterior masonry is done. Interior painting is ongoing. There's a lot of paint that goes into this building. The process equipment installation has begun as well for the process area. Jumped ahead. Digester operations building at the south end of the site. Exterior masonry and roof installation is ongoing. So we're trying to get that building enclosed as well so we can start working more on the interior MEP work there. Process pipe and equipment has been ongoing in the basement, in the pump room, and in the boiler room for a large piece of equipment that we have there. As far as the site goes, duct bank is ongoing. Curb and gutter has been going over the last several weeks, specifically up at the north end. Sidewalk and bike path and asphalt has also been being placed. So just today, actually, they put the surface course down on Flynn Street and in front of the food pantry. So there has been coordination between the contractor, my firm, the food pantry, and the city to try to make sure that they have all their deliveries. And it's an ongoing struggle when we're taking down the street in front of their building, but they've been very understanding, and everybody's been working together on that point. As far as costs, we're at about 87% completion, as Alderman O'Brien noted. Costs for engineering and construction total just over $22.5 million. Change orders, the last change order that went through council was change order number 6 that brought the total change order value to just over $339,000, which is about 1.3% of the contract value.
Which, if I may interject, that is, in construction dollars, very low.
Yes, the dollar value is high, but on a project of this scope and size of $26 million, it's very easy for that number to get out of hand. And so we've been able to curb that and work with the contractor to make sure that all of his pricing is legitimate and real before it sees Byron's eyes, then before it sees Gary's and your eyes. So thank you. Now schedule. Drum roll. So what I'm showing here is the last time we spoke, the update for the schedule at that point. We had submitted change order number 6 that had 11 days to the schedule, but the contractor had fallen back 5 days on critical path work. And you'll see at that point 41 days remained until substantial completion. You'll note as I'm paging through here, the majority of the line items are highlighted in red, which means they are critical path. Anything that pushes that back, pushes back the critical path, and therefore the completion of the project. Here is this month, and can't really zoom on this, but the contractor lost an additional 2 days over the last month in his work. So this is the update as of the 15th. You'll notice as I'm paging through these next 2-3 slides that nearly all of the line items are red. Everything is being pushed along as fast as the contractor is able. We have between 60 and 70 workers on site every day. Contractor is working 10-hour days during the week and working weekends to try to get the buildings enclosed so that the work can be completed, the finishes can be completed, and we can get the city operations back up and running. Are there any questions on schedule while we're here?
Go ahead, Scott.
What would you attribute the lag to?
The 2-day lag?
All of it.
The 2-month lag is attributed to the building not coming up as quickly as initially anticipated. When the contractor started, he had about 3 months of float, so we call the lag between activities before it becomes a critical path and before it turns red. So initially there was about 3 months of float for the main building. Now there's negative float. So between start of construction to now, contractors essentially lost about 5 months of time over a year and a half. So there's a lot of things that go into the building. Every weekend that wasn't worked, every day that concrete was pushed, every day that some component couldn't get completed in time, added to that, chopped away at their float until they had negative float.
Anybody else with questions? Mark, go ahead.
Is there any concern that since they're behind and they're working long hours and stuff like that, that there's the quality is going down?
We're curtailing that as much as possible. It is a common concern for contractors to start cutting corners, especially when they know that they're starting to lose money. The potential liquidated damages that the contractor is facing is over $250,000 at this point. So we have 2 full-time REs on staff working with city inspectors as well to make sure everything is looked at and checked. We have a long list of punch list items already where we have noted that particular care wasn't paid to certain finished details, piping installations, things like that, that won't go unfinished. So we've been pushing to document that as much as possible because the earlier they know about an item that we don't consider acceptable and we're not just going to look the other way, the more chance they have to fix it before, well, we start enforcing everything and bring somebody else in.
So I would say, as far as, I mean, that's what you're here for, and you have your REs for, is to maintain control of quality.
Yes.
I would think my concern would be with worker fatigue, and that's how accidents happen and injuries occur. So that's one thing we would be concerned about as a city, is just, it's a liability factor there. So, and another question for you would be, how'd we lose 2 days in the last month?
I don't know that. I haven't looked at each individual item to find it. I'm sure if the contractor was here, he'd say the same thing. He's updating this schedule based on his feel for percentage completion as reported to him by his superintendent, who is coordinating with all of his subcontractors. So if there's 7 different subcontractors working in the building, you have 7 different stories, 7 different opinions on percentage completion. So I am assuming that it's not really 2 days. It might be 4. It might be 2 fewer days in the schedule. But at this point, every single little day that changes, obviously,
Right.
we're taking note of.
Scott?
Just going back to that punch list, which is becoming long and distinguished, how does that contribute? I'm assuming that is not reflected in your burn down at this point?
It is. There is a portion of our schedule when we wrote up the projection for the construction period that gave us a contract duration to begin with, and the contractor put together, when he put together his initial schedule for punch list and closeout.
Okay.
So that always has to hold a certain amount of time. Usually that's between substantial completion and final completion.
Okay.
Once we have the city in the building, it's harder for them to do any sort of finished work, so we're trying to get as much of those items addressed before we have operators in there trying to get to their lockers and things like that.
Mike,
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
don't know if you can answer this, but when we set this up, we moved the operations out of the building into rental unit. Are we going to have an issue if they don't have this ready when we were ready to leave that? Or are we going to be able to extend the lease or whatever we've got going for that area that they're in now?
I'm pretty confident that we would be able to extend the lease there.
Okay.
I agree.
I guess the next question following that, Alan, is who picks up the cost of that lease?
That's why you have liquidated damages.
Initially, the cost would be borne by the city, but it would be reimbursed by something like liquidated damages. It's a direct cost that the city would have to recoup.
Right.
It's no fault of the cities, it's no fault of the engineers.
Yeah, and so I guess the reason I'm asking, how we lost those 2 days is because, if it's lack of effort on the contractor's part, he does have liquidated damages he's looking into, and they're going to come to the city and say, hey, can you kind of work with us on this? And I'm all more than willing to work with that. But if there's lack of effort, well, my resolve weakens to work with them. So that being said, that's why I asked the question.
I understand. I know from experience that contractors will document as much as possible the extra effort that they put in at the end of a project, no matter if they're a day behind schedule or a month or two in this case, and we do the same thing. We're tracking man hours or manpower, we're tracking equipment on site and things like that, we're tracking rain days.
Right.
Everything under the sun that we've seen as a potential issue for that discussion when it happens.
Anybody else questions at this moment?
Okay. Let's see. Digesters appear on the schedule to be up and running at the end of November. Just if that question didn't come up, I promised myself that I'd make a note of it. So it's getting colder, so when it's colder, odors from the plant don't usually travel as far. They go, yes, exactly. So I just wanted to make note of that.
Nose test tells me yes.
Chinese.
Forgot to ask me this time.
We're good.
Main building. So these are pictures from last month. I notice this picture was taken on the 14th. Right now that black section over the main entrance has been completed. I have a picture later on that shows that. But you'll see the curb installed, the concrete pavement from the north entrance to the main building is in. Here's the back of the building where there was a lot of exposed concrete last month. That has now been completely bricked in. We have stairs coming up to the exterior tank top there in the bottom right-hand corner. And here's that main entrance, a close-up look of that, just to give you an impression of that building. It looks a little bit darker, but once the brick gets cleaned and sealed, it'll all be uniform. Last month is the digester operations building at the south end of the site. It had just recently been backfilled. And you'll note that there's scaffolding around the left side, the west side of the building for the brick installation, exterior masonry, excuse me. The CMU has been waterproofed and the roof has been installed to the limits of what they can do now. Roof installation will be complete once the exterior masonry is up and they get the topping parapet installed. So I've mentioned process piping quite a bit. This is just a small section of the basement piping in that building. It's a tight space. There's a lot of valves. There's a lot of pipe. When the project is complete, we'll take a walk through so I can show it to you firsthand. But this is the work that the contractor is doing. And as you see, this was taken a couple weeks ago, so they're a lot further along now. And that is the update for October. Are there any further questions?
Any comments from anyone, questions? Well, thank you, Jerry. I think it's a great facility. I'm sure our staff is going to enjoy it immensely. And it just, once again, I mean, it's an investment by our community for the quality of life issues we're providing to our residents. So thank you for all your efforts.
Absolutely.
Mike, I do have one question.
Go ahead, Dave.
Jerry, just for clarification, so the public knows, even though we're running a little bit behind schedule, is there anything the public has to worry about as far as whether or not we're treating the water properly, the sewage properly at this point?
No, there's not. The contractor got substantial completion on the phosphorus removal a while ago. C's been operating that, and so we've been meeting our permit limits for phosphorus for several months now. There is no concern the city should have about failing to treat or failing to meet capacity requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Along those lines, just with all the heavy rains we've had no issues, correct?
No. Based on flow into the plant and things like that, no, we've been able to handle everything. Gone to excess flow a couple times, but we've been able to treat it with the temporary system that we have set up.
Right.
And that final system should be up and running this month.
Excellent. All right, thank you again, Jerry.
Yeah.
Okay, is that it, Mike?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. We'll go on then to item 7, which is ordinance 18-66, which is approving a conditional use permit for a medical office and clinic for the Geneva Family Practice at 815 North Randall Road. Alderman Stark.
Thank you so much, Alderman Brown. This piece of property is located on the north side of Hawks Drive between the Walmart parking lot and PNC Bank, just south of Pep Boys and Pacer Dental, so that everybody gets a good idea of where this is in Batavia. And this project is zoned General Commercial District and has allowed land uses regulated by plan development that includes Walmart and properties east of Randall. The General Commercial District does not allow medical offices and clinics, and the original plan development specifies allowed and prohibited uses, with medical offices being prohibited. In 2013, the City Council approved Ordinance 1343 that amended the plan development to add medical and dental offices and clinics with conditional use approval to the uses allowed on the portion of the planned development property that includes this building on Hawks Drive. In 2009, the City Council approved Ordinance 9-36 that also amended Ordinance 315 to allow an immediate care clinic in the subject lease space with a conditional use approval. So, all that said, Geneva Family Practice proposes to use 3,600 square feet of the approximately 10,600 square feet building for their practice of 12,000 patients, many of which are Batavia residents. In their conditional use permit application, which is attached to our memo, Geneva Family Practice doctors Fahey and Rivers note their patients often pair office visits with shopping trips and restaurant meals, bringing customers to nearby businesses. They offer a weight loss program that includes retail sale of related products. Additional information is available in a staff memo to the Plan Commission. So this went to the Plan Commission. They had a public hearing on October 3rd. They will be staffing with 3 to 4 practitioners, 3 to 4 medical assistants, and office support staff. The practice employs 18 people. No audience members spoke at the hearing. The Plan Commission was supportive of the proposal and welcomed Dr. Fahey. The Commission made positive findings of fact. So for us tonight, we can approve the ordinance that allows Geneva Family Practice to serve the public at the proposed location. There are no cons. Staff has no cons at all on this. Budget impact, it would be a positive impact because there'll be some limited retail sales on the premises. Staff impact is none. And if we approve this and move it to council, it would appear on the November 5th City Council agenda for final action. By a vote of 5-0, there were 2 absent. Plan Commission recommended approval of this. And so, of course, staff then also recommends it. And this is a great reuse of that property. I've seen it sitting empty for a while now. I think it's terrific that we'll be bringing more doctors, more people to Batavia. I know that this is always one, and the mayor's not here to talk about it. We always get into the discussion of sales tax revenue producing businesses on the Randall Road corridor, and I am happy to see that there will be some limited sales tax in the weight loss products that they sell. So I know that the doctors are here tonight. If they want to come up and say anything about their proposed practice, and if the council wants to ask any questions of them.
This was Cadence before, right? It was urgent care?
Was it the urgent care?
So it has.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to say something about the sales mix. If it's an empty building and nobody's going in there, or if they occupy it and 50 cars a day go in there, if just 10% of those cars go to another store in the shopping center, it's a win.
Yes, agreed.
Can I make a quick
Sure.
point too? I've helped some of the retail that's in there before, and that particular location is almost impossible for retail because there's no way to see them. They can see them going northbound, but there's no way to get to them. So this is a great kind of use of the building. So I think it's a great idea.
Marty?
Yeah, since it was the Delnor Clinic, we would go there all the time.
Same.
And that's why it was, yeah, we did. Surprise. But when we were there, it was more packed with it being a medical facility because more people were utilizing it. And I think with the senior housing that's in that neighborhood, there's going to be probably more people that are going to use that facility. So it's a good reuse.
Anyone else on the comment have any questions before the doctor speaks? Dan?
I would say, I told a few of you before this meeting, this practice has been my family doctor for the last 30 years, so I'm still alive because of this business. I had to change my commute this morning because I actually had a doctor's visit. I did spend money in the city of Geneva because I had to change my commute this morning. This would be more convenient for me because it's literally across the street. But my only problem is that it's called Geneva Family Practice, so it would be nice if you could consider rebranding to Crosstown Family Practice. It just seems like a perfect opportunity.
I kind of like the idea that a Geneva Family Practice wants to locate in Batavia.
Agreed, agreed. Although this is, I told Dan earlier, it reminds me of the Friends episode where Ross continues to go to his pediatrician and they call him Rossi, Danny.
Thank you.
So which doctor do we have here?
I'm Dr. Fahey, and I'm mostly just stood up here to answer any questions that anybody had. I think you all pointed out the positives that we see in it, and I can't think of any negatives.
What are your hours of operation going to be?
Pardon me?
Hours of operation, when will you be open for
We
clients?
long ago figured out that people who come to the doctor's office early in the morning are anxious to get their stuff taken care of. And we have always staked out the early morning hours. So we're in there at 7 in the morning often. And we work Saturdays until the phone stops ringing.
Very good.
Are you affiliated with Delnor or Northwestern or whatever we call it now?
Yes, we're on staff there.
Okay.
But we're independent physicians, and our lease in their building, which we were original occupants of, is up, and they want our space for their minions, or whatever they're called, doctors.
Great. Anyone else have any other questions?
I'm supportive of it.
Yeah, me
I think
too.
it's a great mix for that area there, and certainly with I don't know how much business you're going to get, I'll say, from the retirement home that's recently opened and the new one that's going to open, but you're kind of sitting in a pretty good place right there, I'd say. So look forward to seeing you open up.
And I think our patients are excited, in a sense, to come to a new place. They are extremely excited about the parking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the truth. Great. Okay. Oh, sorry, Mark.
Just really quickly, I mean, it's a win-win. I mean, we get, somebody occupying that, and then you guys barely have to do anything to move in. It's fantastic for you guys. I'm happy for you to have found something like that, so.
Thank you.
Anyone else? So I make a motion that we recommend ordinance 1866 conditional use permit for medical offices and clinic, Geneva Family Practice, 815 North Randall Road, Geneva Family Practice applicant to City Council.
Second.
Motion by Stark, second by Meitzler. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So that'll be on the November 5th City Council meeting, correct? If you'd like, we'd like to talk about things like this when business is open. We'd like to have just a little bit of conversation, so Alderman Stark will present it at the council meeting. You don't need to be here for that evening if you don't want to be, but if you are here and you want to get up, I'm sure the mayor would let you get up and just talk for a couple minutes about what you're doing to kind of get the word out there in the community that this is what you're going to do. It's up to you. But November 5th, you'll go in front of the city council. Thank you. Okay. Item 8, discussion regarding the review of ordinance 17-46, temporary signs. Alderman Stark.
Sounds good. So this seems like it was a really long time ago, and I think it was. We set for follow-up a discussion of ordinance 1746 regarding temporary signs. And so this has come back before us, and since the new regulations took effect, we've only issued 3 temporary limited duration sign permits. And so, I guess it begs the question is, was this worth it or not? And Scott can speak to that. And Scott, the memo is dated October 10th, 2017. And so that's why I looked at it twice and went, wait.
I wrote it in preparation for this. I knew what I was going to say a year ago. So.
Okay. I thought so. I thought it was a time machine kind of thing, but I wasn't positive. So, this is definitely, when I read this earlier and you talked about the retroactive nature of this permit process is very time intensive, I thought that's not what our goal was. And so, you know, if you've read the memo, you will see that Scott lays it out pretty well for everybody about what additional stuff we've caused staff to have to do because of this temporary thing. So just in terms of alternatives, we can approve an amendment to ordinance 1746 to remove that retroactive provision and restore it back to our original standard permitting, or we can keep it as it was approved last year, or we can provide some additional direction to staff. So Scott, if you want to talk a little bit about it, I just want to throw all that out there.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we had originally been told, you know, 120 days to come back and, you know, present what our findings were, but we asked for some additional time because we really didn't have a lot of feedback and things because of the winter months and whatnot. So we really wanted to, you know, see how well this worked over a full year. So that's kind of why we made that a request to have the additional time. Since that time, I think what we've found is that it frankly doesn't work all that well, the way we're structuring it right now. We're not able, you know, part of it is a staffing issue, obviously, because we don't have, you know, two full-time code enforcement officers that are able to do this. A lot of the signs happen during the summer months when businesses are having sales and things like that. You know, but that's the same time we're also dealing with weeds and trash complaints and neighbor hoarding and all that kind of thing. So we just haven't had the time to dedicate, frankly, to, you know, following up on these violations. The ones that we have been more blatant ones where somebody's got a, you know, huge sign, or they're in the right of, you know, it's the right of way ones are the ones we easily take care of, but or that they have multiple flags or something like that that's in violation of, you know, clear in violation of what the code that we drafted said. So and the problem is, and I kind of laid it out in the memo, I mean, there's a multi-step process we have to go through to do the retroactive steps in trying to enforce the ordinance. And it is really a time-consuming thing to do because of all the, you know, the back checking we have to do and then the follow-up and everything else. And I'm not going to say that, you know, the permitting requirement, you know, when we have signs that go up illegally is not going to involve some of that process too. I mean, we're still going to have to go find the owners and do that too if there's a violation. But if everybody is on the same page with it, understands that, you know what, if you put up a temporary sign, you have to get a temporary sign permit, then, you know, there's some level playing field on that as for that as well as any other type of permit. So this is the only type of permit that we have that is different than our standard permitting system that we have in place right now. And so it does make it a little bit difficult to do the enforcement and really be effective in trying to enforce our sign ordinance. So that's why we decided to, you know, chew on this for a year and see if things would change. But, you know, we're finding that, you know, it really hasn't changed and it really has not been effective. And, you know, if you drive around town, you can see that there's a lot of different temporary signs in different places that we just have not had the ability and time to enforce against. So that's what we're presenting to you and looking for direction from you as to, you know, how you would like to handle this from this point forward.
And staff, near the end of the memo, recommends that we roll it back to the original standard permitting. And if that happens tonight, then both Nick and Alan can say neener, neener. They voted against it last year when we put this in place. So does anyone have any questions, Marty?
I don't think we've really set it up to succeed yet because of the fact that we don't have online bill paying for it to gain compliance. There's no motivation for something along those lines. And while we're very concerned about the labor-intensive portion of it, one of the simplest things that we could do is put bill pay into effect, and we could gain better compliance. And we can gain better make sure the payments of those fees are, because you're taking one of the excuses away from people that are just putting it out there. And so with that said, in the year, we haven't made any progress on that. That's kind of shame on us that we haven't done something in this day and age as simple as a quick online bill pay system. We already have online bill paying that's out there that we could have done something along those lines to make it a little bit easier to really set it up and say, we want to make sure this isn't anything new. We were saying it a year ago that it was something that should have been worked on with it. And I get that there's all kinds of technology deficits that Howard's dealing with, but it's one of those pieces that it's a key component of it to not just throw up our hands and say, well, it's not really working when we haven't allowed it to succeed.
And I will say two things about that. One is, yes, we have not finished up the online permitting system. We are working with IT to get that going, and this would be one of the permits that would be part of that process. A lot of it is, and really, we wanted to start this 6-9 months ago, but we have had some technology issues and issues with the payment program and everything else with, having to return a machine for the payments and things like that. So there have been some technology issues with that. But that being said, we, as part of the original agreement, we were agreeing to allow for faxed permits, dropped-off permits, email permits, any of those types of things. So it wasn't truly an electronic permit, but if somebody had just faxed us a permit or faxed us or emailed a permit, that was going to be considered acceptable under that permitting program. So I think the online permitting system is not going to be as beneficial as what you're thinking it would be, because we already have that ability for people to provide that information right now.
Dan?
So if I remember correctly, this ordinance kind of freaked out the realtor community. A bunch of realtors showed up for this. Based on what I can tell, we haven't really had tremendous amount of realtor violations when
we've had probably 3 realtor signs that have gone up since that time.
And then have you had a chance to reach out to Alex from the Realtors Association? I'm curious if he gave any input for.
No, I have not. No.
Anyone else? Okay. So we have some choices. We can make some recommendations as something to do different. We can leave it the way it is, or we can take it back to how it originally was, which is what staff is recommending that we do. So, in my opinion, until we find an easier way for people to do this, it doesn't make sense to pile on more work on staff. But that's just my opinion. We will, put this out to a vote, but we need to know what we're voting on.
That sounded like a motion.
I'll make.
That sounded like a motion.
No. Well, actually, I make the motion that we restore, take ordinance 1746, remove the retroactive provision, and restore the standard permitting process.
Second.
So you would be saying to remove section 5?
If that is the section, Alan, then I do agree with you.
I'd like to know when we're going to have a time frame on when we're going to have the electronic stuff available, because I think that, more than anything, makes this work.
Right. Yeah, and we're working with Howard, and we're talking to him every couple of weeks about, what the status of the payment machine is. And I don't know, Peggy, do you have any information on that at all, or?
Not the status of it.
Okay. But.
Some comments about and
Good evening. It's my understanding that there will only be a few permits that will be online permits. And the issue was initially that the permit software developer wants the city to accept the payments directly, causing the city to have to be PCI compliant. With our credit card acceptance now, it goes to a third-party site. We don't have to worry about anything going through our software. And that's been the main delay, is trying to work that out with that. I can't say how much longer it's going to be. We're ready to go on the banking end. We've had the bank account set up for several months, but it was between the software developer and IT.
And the temporary signs were going to be one of the ones that we're going to have as part of that, and we have done internal beta testing on it and everything else, and I think we're comfortable with the system as it's structured now, where we can accept the various documents as part of certain permits. And again, we're starting it out as a beta mode where we wouldn't accept every permit, and I don't think we're going to ever accept every permit online, but we have a sampling of ones that are relatively simple to beta test it, see how it goes, and then we'll expand that from there and add additional permits as we're able to provide that additional data, because some permits have a lot of documents you have to submit that may be a little more difficult. So we're doing the ones that are relatively simple initially, just to see how it works.
Marty?
If we roll out number 5, how does that change anything from creating greater efficiency today in how it's going to be? If we don't have time to do what we're doing with this piece, then how are we going to have time for checking the other things now?
Well, we're going to be able to be a little bit more proactive when somebody comes in here and says, asks us about permits, we can explain a little bit better the process. This new process was a little bit more, we'll call it nebulous, in what they had to do and how the process had to be handled. So, we honestly, we're not doing a lot of active enforcement on it. So we would be able to do a little bit more active enforcement because it would be pretty straightforward. Just like if somebody was not doing a deck or building a deck or a shed or something like that without a permit and we observe it, we'd be able to go and say, look, you need to come in, get your permit, and then they would come in and get their permit, or in this case, submit it electronically, and everything else is part of their application. So it's less of a multi-step process than it would be otherwise.
And how many incidents has that been in the last year?
How many incidents have we followed up from a code
Where
enforcement
someone's
standpoint?
come in, like you just said, where someone's come in.
We've had 3 permits. We've had 3 permits in the last year.
Susan?
Yes.
I look at this as, it was over a year ago, Scott stood up there and said he'd like us to amend the ordinance to put this provision in there because he felt as though it would give the city a better opportunity to monitor the signage and control what was going on. And we had a lot of the same conversation about could it be enforced and how are you going to enforce it and should it be enforced and all this kind of stuff. And now we got the same gentleman standing up here, the director of the community development. I think that's your title, right? After all these years, I should know that. But he's standing up here saying it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it doesn't work, he doesn't want it in the ordinance.
We gave it a year.
Yeah.
So, and to Marty's point, I understand that our technology has not kept pace with this, but it would be, I think, better that after we have the technology in place, then we revisit the ordinance and then put it back into the ordinance. But for right now, we're just kind of chasing our tails until we can actually have any follow-up on this. So the motion's out there, motion by Stark, second by Chancet. So I would ask Jenny with direction to staff as well as with an amendment to this ordinance. Is how I made the motion. And I would say, can we please do a voice vote? Roll call. Jeez.
Stark?
Aye.
Chancet?
Aye.
Salvati?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Brown?
Aye.
O'Brien? Callahan?
No.
Meixler?
Aye.
Malay?
Aye.
Ewer?
Aye.
Saron?
Aye.
McFadden?
Aye.
Rosado?
Aye.
And Atack.
No.
Motion carried, 12-2.
Okay, so the motion carries, but it will not go on consent agenda. It has to go to the regular agenda on the city council. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is item 9, motion to authorize execution of articles of agreement for the deed for land on Danforth Drive. Alderman Stark.
Okay. So this came before us on Resolution 1894R, which authorized the sale of the land on Danforth. And we advertised for a bid with a bid deadline of September 7th. We received one bid in the amount of $7,275 as a 3-year installment agreement. So the alternatives here, this is the articles of agreement for the deed for the land, and staff is supportive of it and recommends that the city administrator be authorized to sign the agreement on the city's behalf. And we need to approve this motion to sell the land by a 2/3 majority of the city council. So our alternatives are sell the property or do not sell the property. And so if we sell it, it's going to put it back in the tax rolls and it's immediate revenue to the city. Cons, we would no longer have control over the property other than for utility and drainage purposes. We would end up retaining an easement for the existing and future public utilities as well as the sidewalk that is partially on the property. There's budget impact in that we are going to receive revenue from the sale of the land as well as annual property tax revenues, and there's no additional staffing impact. So there's no timeline that we need to act on this, but the adjacent owners have submitted the bid and the first year payment in compliance with the bid notification. So staff is recommending that we approve this. Does anyone have any questions?
This is the same thing that we had to go through with the other 4 properties along this.
It's similar. The other
similar.
ones didn't do articles of agreement. They was just
Right,
straight
it was just a
deeds.
straight purchase.
Right.
Okay.
Dan?
I just want to make the comment that I appreciate the flexible payment. I think that that's a great tool to help us get rid of some of these properties. Right.
Marty?
And also, if they make 2 payments and then don't pay the third, they've lost the 2.
We keep
Or
the money.
lost the 1, or whatever.
And Danforth is over in your ward, correct?
ours.
Yeah. Just so we can clarify where pieces of property are.
It's corner right across from Alice Gustafson School.
Okay. So I'll make a motion that we recommend to City Council authorizing execution of the Articles of Agreement for the deed for land on Danforth Drive.
Second.
Motion by Stark, second by Callahan. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, wait, we need a 2/3 majority on this one, so we need to do a roll call.
Stark,
Aye.
Chanson,
Aye.
Salvati,
Aye.
Wolf,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
O'Brien, Callahan,
Aye.
Meitzler,
Aye.
Malay,
Aye.
Ewer,
Aye.
Saron,
Aye.
McFadden,
Aye.
Rosado,
Aye.
and Atak.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Great. And then when it goes to City Council, we'll need the official 2/3. But I just wanted to make sure that we get good practice.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Scott. Item 10, Water Street Studios loan forgiveness, year 9 of 10. Alderman Atek?
Yes, okay. Back in 2009, the city gave Batavia Enterprises an $85,000 loan to encourage the establishment of the Batavia Arts Center Water Street Studios. And as an incentive, they said that they would make it a forgivable loan, and every year that the gallery was successfully leased, we would forgive 10% of the loan. And in year 9, again, it has been successfully leased. And so I will recommend that we forgive $8,500.
Second.
All in favor? You know what? Was that the right amount? Did I say that right? 8,005? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay. Consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know, I think we'd rather talk about it because I think that's in my mind, one of the best things that we've spent, the money that we spent on that,
Right.
both in grant and in forgivable loan in downtown. It's been roughly 15 to 20 businesses a year that are in there that function and constantly stay, focused on their mission and moving forward every year.
It's been a great asset for
Right, and it's a
downtown.
great thing for the downtown.
Kind of anticlimactic not to clap for them at the end of the race, too, so.
Quick question on that. Since that was part of a 10-year agreement that was initially, if someone said for savings, is that something that could be cut for next year's budget?
No, it's a commitment that we
I didn't-
already have.
I didn't think so. It's not fluff or waste that's in there.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, so that'll go on the regular agenda. All right, thank you. Next item is item 11, Resolution 18-119-R, authorizing the bind insurance for liability and workman's compensation. Alderman Atek.
This is our annual insurance and renewal of our annual insurance, and it looks like Peggy's here to talk about it. Is there something that you'd like to add?
I would just go over the renewal was very favorable with only a $6,000 increase in overall premiums with an increased coverage. And that also includes the extension of the builder's risk until we complete the wastewater treatment plant project, but there was no additional premium charge for that.
Are there any questions?
Just that builder's risk, Peggy, is that something that number is going to be shared throughout staff then when they start talking about the liquidated damages, if there's additional cost for the insurance because of the prolonged project?
Yes, I'll clarify that with them, but they indicated that they would not charge an additional premium.
Oh, they will not charge?
Will not,
Oh, okay, I
right.
thought you said it included the additional, okay. I'm sorry.
Mark?
So I see property went down a little bit. Is anything in here related to our ISO rating from the fire department?
You know, I don't know. I'll have to ask our broker about that because that just came up, so I'm not sure when they quoted that, if that actually had come up on their radar yet.
Elliot?
Just a clarifying question. The package renewal cost being $400,171, but the recommendation for approval is against an amount not to exceed 410. Can you just
Right.
clarify the difference
Just,
there?
Because some things come up at the last minute that we may need to bind coverage for that we would like to be able to do without having to come back and wait for a meeting.
Marty?
There was, at our last time that we talked about this last year, there was some talk about the concern for the trending of our workers' comp claims. Is there any concern for that anymore?
Well, it will always be an issue for us.
Right.
We have a very high self-insured retention of $700,000, so we pay the first $700,000 of any workers' comp claim. And generally, that it pays for everything related to the claim. But we do pay this premium for any catastrophic event that would go over that up to the statutory maximum.
But I know that we were seeing some trending that was increasing every year. Of course, all things do increase over time, but there were some claims that were higher than unexpected.
Those generally don't cause that much concern for our stop-loss carrier because they only pay for anything that goes over the $700,000 mark. When we first became self-insured back in 2005, it was for workers' comp, it was $350, and they keep increasing it for all self-insured entities here in Illinois. We could never get that low of a self-insured retention anymore. They're shifting the risk.
Dan?
I don't know why, but I never noticed the public officials liability. Is that if I fall down the stairs or if Susan runs her mouth? What
More running of the mouth.
Well, without giving a specific example, it might be more like the ladder.
Just checking.
And not a physical ladder.
I have
down
one
the rabbit
question in here. In the policy in here, there's got listed as crime. And that went down $231. What is that for?
The crime policy covers employee theft or deception.
Okay.
And we've never had a claim for that.
Okay.
And I will point out that we do have the cyber liability, and that did cover our incident that we had earlier this year. And
I also see that the workers' comp is also down this year, the cost on it. And that usually follows claims. If the claims aren't as high, then they'll drop the next year.
Right.
Okay.
And one thing that we will be reviewing over the next year are all of our property values. We have a blanket limit of $82 million. So we are covered. If a tornado took out this building, we would be able to make a claim up to the $82 million. But still, we want to make sure that if something were to happen citywide, that all of our buildings have adequate coverage. So we'll be reviewing that over the next year to make sure that we have correct limits there.
Anything else?
We have, we own certain parcels of land throughout the city. Do we have a liability coverage on that?
We do. We report all of the vacant property to the insurer.
And as Scott is selling this land off, does that premium go down?
It's so minute, it will have no effect.
So I guess,
Generally, they've told us we don't even have to report by parcel. If we own it, they'll cover us, kind of thing, unless we make something, over several acres of purchase.
do we have any coverage also, say, in the parking lots of the banks?
If
Bank
it's a
parking lots.
city-owned parking
It's
lot.
city-owned?
Yes.
But I mean, if we were to look for that, look for some, I'm just thinking for shared parking throughout our town. What kind of a premium do you think we would have to purchase to get some sort of coverage that we can use bank parking?
Well, generally,
Right.
they would require us to have a hold harmless agreement and to name them as an additional insured.
And how,
It would be not.
Minimal.
Yeah, it'd be minimal cost.
right, and so, just good to know.
Anything else? All right, would someone like to make a motion to recommend to council approval of Resolution 18-119-R, authorization to bind insurance?
So moved?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes.
Before the city council meeting, can you check on the ISO and see if that
Yes,
affects
I
this?
will.
Okay, consent agenda? Okay. Thanks, Peggy.
And then also to comment back on the Water Street Studios, because Marty had asked, is that something that we could save money on? Actually, that loan was given back in 2009, and it's recorded as a liability on our balance sheet, and so each year we reduce it by expensing 1 year, but the cash was out the door in 2009.
Right.
Thank you.
All right, item 12 is project status. Laura?
Yes, first of all, I just want to let everyone know that we did find a location for the Batavia Access Toy Drive this year. We would like to thank very much the John Clark family who have offered use of Avenue Chevrolet. Ordinarily, the toy drive likes to obtain a lease someplace mid-October, but the family had their antique sale, and then there's another private antique sale that will be taking place there this weekend, and then the toy drive is going to move into that location thereafter. But the city would really like to express its thanks to the Clark family for being so generous to donate that space. Also wanted to let everybody know that this Saturday is a National Drug Take-Back Day. And a lot of people are looking for ways that they can somehow have a positive impact on the opioid crisis that's happening here in the United States. And many don't know that the medicines that languish in home cabinets are highly susceptible to diversion, misuse, and abuse. And the rates of prescription drug abuse in the U.S. are extremely high, as are the number of accidental poisonings, overdose due to these drugs. October 17th is the 16th Drug Take-Back Day in 8 years, and its goal is to prevent the pill abuse and theft by ridding homes of potentially dangerous, expired, unused, and unwanted prescriptions. While this is a special event that the many Kane County sites are participating in on October 27th, the city of Batavia has a collection here at our police department that's available to City of Batavia residents every day of the year. Right here at 100 North Island Avenue at City Hall, what you do is you just take your unused prescriptions and take them out of the bottles that they come in, just dump them into any Ziploc bag, bring those to the police department, and they'll give you a key to unlock the front of the bin, and you can deposit those in there. So many people have, they just didn't use the rest of their prescription, and they sit there for years. Do yourself a favor and clean out those cabinets and turn those drugs in and get those into a safe collection. Wanted to let everybody know who's going to be coming down to City Hall for Bat Fest this weekend that sidewalk out front will finally be reopened. So that will be very nice. We are nearing the very end of our completion of our outside construction project. Also, just want to let everybody know that my assistant, Anthony, last week attended a week-long basic course in economic development. It's the first step toward a certification in economic development, and so he has expressed an interest in, and we're going to get him more involved with Chris Aston and our economic development activities. As well, Anthony has become a part of the board for Main Street. And we have had Chris Faber here, the new executive director, and he has indicated that economic development for the downtown area is a major thing that he would like to accomplish in his tenure as the executive director. And so we hope that he and Anthony can collaborate on economic development activities right here in our downtown area as well. We have a tremendous amount of activity in our industrial parks. Some people who are proposing to purchase vacant properties and build on them, as well as leases of vacant properties. And so I'll look forward to, as those deals come to fruition, to be able to share the good news of that activity. But there are about 6 different projects of that nature that are happening in our industrial parks right now. Also want to let you know that last week we had an initial meeting of a employee wellness committee. Employees from all areas of our organization who have an interest in wellness initiatives came together and discussed how they might work together on healthcare plan design, results-based incentives for employees, as well as educational and fitness programs available to all employees. Our risk pool agency for medical benefits, IPBC, provides funding to its member organizations on a per employee basis based upon the different types of activities that as an employer that we sponsor and support here. So by engaging in these types of efforts, we will be rewarded by having funding made available to us to fund the types of initiatives that we'll be talking about. Also, the IT department has been extremely busy over the last few days doing an installation of Office 365, which is going very, very well so far. And that's all I have, unless people have any questions for me.
Scott? You sent a note earlier, or late last week, that Alpha Gamma, what they committed to a lease.
Well, I think that they are still in the negotiating for that, but we had a very good meeting with regard to the incentive that we discussed at the previous meeting with City Council. Their president from Italy flew over to talk with us about that, and so we hope to hear about that in the next couple of days, really.
Susan?
I have 3 things. The first thing is, are we done with brush collection for the year?
No, I don't think we are. I just saw the proof for neighbors, and I thought there's 2 November dates.
Okay. I saw the leaf truck go by, and so I couldn't remember how all these things tied together. The second thing is, just to remind people, early voting is not at City Hall this year. It's at the Park District building, because there's been a lot of discussion about where do I go to vote early. And so I wanted to make sure that we mentioned it yet again, that because City Hall is under construction, you can't come here to vote, but you can just go right across Batavia Avenue to the Park District building and vote there. And then the third thing is, since the election is on the night of a cow meeting, are we going to have our cow meeting that night, or are we, any change plans?
The mayor always brings that up. I'm glad you did, because it's his preference always that we don't have it. He feels as though he should give us the opportunity and/or him to be able to participate in any election activities that we shall choose to do so. So I think that's a good question. And Laura, unless you can think of some burning reason why we should have it, we should plan on not having it that night.
Sounds good.
Okay. And so to that end, Jim Fehrenbach talked to me, and we will be using my house as a place where people can come and gather and watch the election returns come in and find out if we continue to have home rule status or not, and who's the governor race, and, excuse me?
Any other races that you're watching that?
Governor, some additional races that night, but there will be, some other races going on, and so it's a BYOB event, but we'll have food. So, my house, 203 North Washington. I said that quickly. Yes, Pat?
Do we need to post that if more than a quorum shows up?
As long as we don't talk about city business.
Were you asking about leaf collection or brush collection?
Brush collection.
Okay. Brush
The
collection.
sticks.
The sticks. So you still have 2 opportunities for brush collection. One is November 26th and November 26th. Sorry, I just noticed it's on both sides, east side and west side, because it's citywide. So
Okay.
the very last
The last
collection.
one. So there's no more other than that one. November 26th is the Jimbo collection. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so.
Anybody else? I just have one question, Laura. The Suncast Rail Spur, is that up and running yet, do you know?
It's not up and running. They just continue to, they're making progress on it.
Vincent will be out of town.
It's built.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Peggy?
I do.
Peggy?
Yes, I wanted to talk about the budget because normally we would be distributing it at the end of this month, but due to time constraints with responding to some of the issues related to home rule, we haven't had the time to really go through the budget. And in addition, if we do lose home rule on November 6th, it will likely impact the looks of the budget. And so I just wanted to find out if there were any comments or questions from the council on the direction that you would like to see things go, should that occur.
Did you mean like the cover photo will look
No.
different?
The first budget meeting is scheduled for when, Peggy?
The 8th.
It's actually scheduled for the 8th.
And I know Laura it was you that sent the email out about whether or not we should have it. And I don't know what kind of response you got from people. I did talk to Laura about that, and I thought that we should still have that meeting scheduled because there's an awful lot of information in the very beginning of the budget that talks about how we got here and what our goals and strategic plan is and how the budget was created, I guess. So I thought we should still have that meeting to have that discussion rather than, if nothing else, rather than us all sitting down and reading it individually, we can just have that discussion that night if we can't get too deep into the budget.
Okay. I think we could still easily have a presentation to pull out the highlights for you at that time.
I just happen to note that on the 8th, I have a breakfast to go to. And a
Yeah.
bunch of us do. It's going to be a really long day. If there's any chance we could start that meeting a little bit early, especially if it takes a long time to talk about doomsday sort of situations, I would like to go to bed because I got to work the next morning.
It's actually going to be a short day for me if I go to that breakfast because I'm usually out of the house a lot earlier, but
Okay. That's early for me.
I think the last few years it's been on the same day.
yeah.
Let's have it at Susan's. She'll have leftovers. BYOB.
Yeah, my husband's out of town, so, the more the merrier, everybody can come over.
As far as city staff is concerned, we
Yeah.
can start at any time you like.
What time is it scheduled for?
7.
Oh,
I think we should leave it.
I'd like to leave it at 7.
Okay, that it?
Yes.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that everybody understands about the property tax and what's subject to the tax cap and what's not, and what that means if we chose to levy property taxes that we normally abate, that those are not subject to the tax cap. Okay.
Can you just explain it one more time? So things like the fire station bonds, is that what you mean, or?
Any of our general obligation bonds, which we have the fire station and now the stormwater bonds, and then also we have the electric utility bonds that are now general obligation bonds, and water and sewer bonds. So all of those bonds we abate rather than collect property taxes on, and if needed, we could levy those taxes.
What would be the estimate for the amount that represents?
That was the amount that we referenced of $325 for a $300,000 home.
So Peggy, in essence, what you're saying that the city council, if the city council were to lose home rule, they could levy to the tax cap and then over and above that, add the that approximately $325 to your tax bill?
Yes.
Without a referendum, without
Yes.
anything? It would just be like, okay, here's the tax cap, and then here's the additional $325 to cover the general obligation bonds?
Right.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we had that right.
And Peggy, we would almost have to do that, correct? To meet our obligation, or else we'd have to go into reserve.
We would have to go into reserves. I would assume, definitely look into putting a referendum on in April to try and get the sales tax back. And before making any permanent decisions, I would think you would want to know that. So as far as, we would make some recommendations for spending cuts you could also make.
Can you put that on in April, or does it have to wait till November?
I think we can put it on in April.
Can we?
But it's due in November of this year. I mean, we have to pass the
Right.
resolution to put the question on the April ballot in November.
So that would have to happen this November.
Right.
Very quickly.
Okay.
So this was brought up as a hypothetical for if we did lose home rule. Would there be anything preventing us from, at budget time, raising taxes to the 5 million mark, since we would still have home rule until the end of the year?
No.
As far as I know, we would not have home rule until the end of the year.
Or would it, okay. and
It would lapse after the election is certified.
So that's when it goes in? Okay.
We could hold off on certification for a day.
Well, but that was I don't know if it was a half joking or a legitimate concern.
I asked the question if we could open a line of credit quickly as an emergency, and we can't, because if we don't have something to spend the money on, we can't borrow.
Right, correct. But they were asking if this $5 million needs to be made up, and it's being alleged we could just raise things willy-nilly to begin with, why wouldn't we just raise taxes $5 million? And I was like, I didn't think.
The county does the extension in March, and we would not be home rule at that time, and that's when they do the tax limitation and calculate what that limiting rate is.
I didn't think so, but just checking.
So next question, if we were to pass it, say we got a referendum and we were able to pass to reinstate all the taxes, the money that would lose with the loss of home rule, and we did that in April, when would that go into effect?
Actually, the state law just changed on that recently. It used to be that they would not put the sales tax back on until you had to notify them by April 1st.
Okay.
And now they've changed the date to May 1st to go on in July.
But just to be clear, that we're only talking about the sales tax?
Yes, not all the
Because
revenues.
non-home rule can't even implement the liquor tax or the gas tax.
Right.
What about an additional places for eating tax? When can you how soon could you implement that? Do you know?
I think that could be on the April 2nd ballot.
It wouldn't have to be voted on, would it? Isn't that something that can be done in a non-home rule community with no
Yes.
referendum?
Yes.
Okay, so you could implement that right away?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, I have faith in the public, and I don't think we're going to have to
I
answer
do
those
too.
questions.
I do too.
Yes.
I really do.
It's always good, though, to know your options. So,
It was explained very well, I thought, by one of the extremely vocal detractors on social media, that they don't have to tell us what they would cut from our budget if we were to lose home rule, because we're the experts. We have all the information. We have all the data in front of us. We should be the ones telling them what we'd cut. And that's exactly why referendums shouldn't be the way that we govern this city, because the 14 of us are the ones that spend the time, that read all the information, that ask all the questions, to make the informed decisions. You know, it's really up to them to figure out which 14 of us they want up here doing that, rather than every time some big question comes up, the public can have their say on Facebook and Nextdoor and everything else to be able to determine the direction of the city. So to me, that was the answer that I wanted to see out there for the public to see, that that's the reality of the way our city is governed, and that's the way it should be.
You mean a democracy?
Yes.
Okay.
Representative democracy.
Okay, do we have any others? Dan?
I'm not advocating raising taxes tonight. I just would like to note that on my drive home, gasoline in St. Charles was $2.61. In Geneva, it was $2.60. In Batavia, it was $2.85 and $2.45 at 6:30 tonight. So that extra penny that Mike and I were fighting for would have been very difficult to find this evening.
Any other? Okay, so that will end our regular session of the Committee of the Whole meeting. We now need a motion to enter into executive session for the
Second.
purpose of pending litigation. Motion by O'Brien, second by Salvati. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, so that means that we're going to go into executive session, which means everybody has to leave the room, and there won't be anything coming out of the meeting when we adjourn.